In the honeymoon stages, you're like, I can do it all. But then when you add on work and you add on children, it starts to pile on, and then you become overwhelmed and you're like, how did I get here? It goes from large matters all the way down to who's cleaning the kitchen, who's doing the laundry. We break down the happily ever after. You know how all the movies stop at happily ever after? Yeah. They never continue on to what is life like. And a lot of people find it boring because all the excitement is gone.
Welcome to the Drama-Free Divorce Podcast. I'm your host, attorney and mediator, Carrie Jacobson. Each week, we bring you practical guidance, real conversations, and expert insights to help you navigate divorce with clarity, confidence, and less conflict. If you're ready for a calmer, more empowered path forward, you're in the right place. Welcome back to the Drama-Free Divorce Podcast, where we focus on helping families reduce conflict, communicate better, and make thoughtful decisions before, during, and even before divorce becomes an issue. I'm your host, Carrie Jacobson, attorney, mediator at Jacobson Family Law. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different, but incredibly important because we're talking about prevention, specifically how premarital counseling can help couples build strong, healthy foundations and avoid many of the conflicts that lead people to our office in the first place seeking a divorce. I'm thrilled to be joined by Angel Thompson, a solution-focused and strength-based therapist with over 20 years of experience in the social services field. Angel is licensed in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Texas, and brings a uniquely practical and empowering approach to therapy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on here.
Absolutely. Before we dive in, I always like to ask our guests a little bit more about your background and what led you to focus on marriage, family therapy, and even premarital work.
Well, so in high school, I took an AP psychology course and I never veered from that. It's like I got hooked from the beginning. I found it interesting. I knew that I didn't want to do something that was going to be boring. The same thing, monotonous. I did not want that at all. I definitely picked the right career. No day is ever the same. And when you're in school, you have to go and work with all different types of populations. I just found couples fun. It's different. A lot of therapists kind of veer away from couples because it's a lot of work. But for me, I enjoy the both perspectives, like not just being one. So I enjoy that and I use it.
I agree. I enjoy my work with couples when I'm working with them on mediation, whether it's, and we may talk about this a little bit, prenuptial mediation, which a lot of people don't know can be a thing where they can actually have conversations before going into the marriage to talk about those prenups. Or, in the event that things do take that turn and we're doing the divorce mediation. The couples work is my favorite too.
Yeah, it's fun. It is definitely easier to help get to a resolution with two people versus just working on one end. So it's beneficial. For sure.
Absolutely. So let's talk about premarital counseling. I know, a lot of people think that why would I do this unless we're having problems, or they, skip it altogether, or they do it, I think of like religious connotations.
You're not the first person to say that. And I don't quite understand why religion would come into premarital counseling. I'm not sure.
I think certain religions require premarital counseling.
Yes, they do. But premarital counseling, for me, it's a tool, right? Yep. Marriage was created to be lifelong. Mm-hmm. So if you prepare for a career, why not prepare for a marriage? In premarital counseling, we cover everything. Now, religion is one of the things that we do cover because that is important. It could be a deal breaker for some people, but we cover every aspect of someone's life because that's what you're doing. You're doing life with someone else. So why not prepare for it? I really don't. I've heard that before. I just don't understand. I get it. Some religions do require it. What we do in premarital counseling, it's not all about religion. Religion is one aspect, but we talk about everything. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a misconception.
So, do you typically talk about finances and children and all of those things in premarital counseling?
Yes. So the first thing we do is we define marriage because everyone has a different definition of marriage that has been created from their environment, what they saw when they, were growing up, and what they have, imagined in their head to be what they want their marriage to look like. So that's the first thing that we address is what is marriage to you? And then, we cover everything from parenting styles to parenting roles to in-laws to family culture, finance. We talk about sex. because that is a big part too. We talk about homosexuality. We talk about everything. Everything. We talk about everything.
Awesome.
Nothing's off limits.
And I think, all of those things are part of the relationship and need to be discussed so that it does build that stronger foundation from the beginning. Yeah.
It does.
What are some of the most common topics that you find couples don't talk about before getting married, but they really should?
Sexual fantasies. A lot of people don't want to talk about that. They're scared to talk about that. They're afraid of being judged. A lot of couples think that they are like solid foundationally, but when we do premarital counseling, they learn a lot about their partner. So that's one of them. Codependency. That's another one, like defining cheating. Like, what is that? A lot of people have different definitions of cheating. Some just kind of stick to like intercourse, and then some are like emotional cheating, talking to other women or men, So that parenting style. So we do a parenting style assessment to see what type of parenting style you lean toward the most, and then talk about what that looks like, if the two are different, if they're the same, things like that. Family culture, creating your own family culture. That's another one that people often don't talk about. Like it's the simple things like whose house are you going to do for Christmas and for Thanksgiving, and what holidays do you celebrate? What holidays you don't celebrate? What, if any, religion are you going to raise your children to teach them? So all of those things, all of the things, everything, nothing's off limits, nothing.
That's amazing. And I agree that so many of those things are not discussed. And when those conversations don't happen, then 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years later, they're coming to see us because there's something that has happened in a breakdown of one of those.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Yes. I actually just recently had someone want to introduce, what is it called? It's the agreement when you're already married, but now you want to start one. Okay. A post-nap. Yes. We just kind of went through all of that and all the things that she would want to ask her lawyer to add and things like that, because some things were happening in the marriage that they didn't talk about, had no agreement on. And she's like, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. So assuming that some of those things were financially related, then those things can absolutely be dealt with in a postnuptial agreement, which is very similar to a prenup, with the exception that it's dealt with post-marriage. But we're dealing with things like, how are you going to handle finances? How are they going to be? Are they going to be considered separate? Are they going to be considered joint or marital? How do they get divided upon divorce? But also, what happens if either of you die? There's lots of things to kind of go in there. And we're seeing a definite increase in the postnuptial agreements.
Good.
Now, you are solution-focused, strength-based approach to your work. Can you explain a little bit what that means and why it's so effective for couples?
So solution focused is a type of therapy that we do that focuses you on getting where you want to be. So we may talk about some past things, but we really focus on what you want your future to look like. Our past, we can't control, it's over with. And so we like to focus on the future and how we can make that the best quality of life for you. And then we use your strengths, right? Your natural born strengths to get you there.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And is that individual work or couples work or both?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I use it all the time. It's so effective.
Right. Yeah. And that's generally how we address the mediation side of the practice as well. When we're dealing with divorce, it's like we can touch on some of the things that have happened as to why things are coming up. But really, this is where we are now. This is what's going to be going forward. And how do you want to deal with those things? And how can we put things in place to address them going forward, as opposed to the court side of things, which is, well, who did wrong? And let's punish that person for doing it.
And what are you going to pay? Yep. It's punitive. Yeah, for
exactly.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. That's exactly how it works. That's exactly how it works.
Absolutely. So you're also the author of a premarital workbook. I do.
Yeah,
I don't.
That's it right there. Yes, that's it right there. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
You can go as fast or slow as you like. The recommended time is about 12 weeks. So each chapter is dealing with all the aspects that we talked about before, right? So there's a finance section, there's a parenting section, there's a family culture section. We even touch on co-parenting because we have a lot of blended families. And even if you're not a blended family, having two parents, you're still co-parenting. You can't, you're not, right? So we do that, and we have a bunch of assessments like love languages, which your love language assessment, your parenting style assessment, things like that. So it is definitely effective. And once you get through the book, at the end, you have to choose, would you like to move forward with marriage or would you not want to? Is there some things that you want to hold off on and work through before you do that? Things like that.
And how often do you see couples say, I'm going to put a pause on this or we're going to move in a different direction?
I've never seen anyone say absolutely no, I don't. But I have seen couples say, well, we have about a year more to work through some of these kinks, and see if we can move forward. I've had more of those than just I do's, honestly.
Right.
Because they learn a lot about one another that they're like, wait a minute, let's talk about this. Let's figure this out.
And I'm assuming they also learn a lot about themselves in those assessments as to how they want to handle things.
Yep. And how much their childhood shows up in their adult life. Yeah. That's another new aspect. Another cool thing about the workbook is it's like a time capsule. You get to keep it and refer back to it. I have a lot of couples that come, as needed after going through this. And I tell them, well, what did your finance, like, what did you say? Let's go back to that and see how much you have veered off from that. Maybe that's the issue. So it's really cool to kind of see like some of the things that they have agreed on and said to one another in the workbook.
Right. Interesting. And whether or not they go back and kind of discuss it again, because as people grow individually and grow, they change over time.
Things change. Yep. Things change. Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a part in there where we talk about, if you want to have children, how many children, and then what are the household chores going to be? Because a lot of people don't realize that stuff matters. Who's cleaning the kitchen matters. Like it 100%. Really does matter. It seems petty and minute, but it really does matter when it's a day-to-day thing, right? So you have no idea how many people, because I have a little option in there of whether you will hire someone to help you with the house, and they all say no. And then later on I find out they're like, yeah, we just pay somebody. Because it helps it keep the peace.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I can't tell you how many times, we get couples or an individual client, usually, generally speaking, it is the woman who, is doing all of the things and the spouse is not assisting in all of those things. And it feels to them like they have a second, third, or fourth child. And it's like, well, why am I continuing to do this and not get the assistance in the relationship? So
absolutely. Yeah. So that is why I have that in there, because what people don't realize is how you start something is how it will continue. In the beginning, in the honeymoon stages, you're like, I can do it all. But then when you add on work and you add on children, it starts to pile on, and then you become overwhelmed and you're like, how did I get here?
Absolutely. And if you haven't had that conversation, then it is really like, well, what do we do now?
Yep. Yeah. So it goes from large matters all the way down to who's cleaning the kitchen, who's cleaning the bathroom, who's doing the laundry, things like that. Because it matters. It matters.
It does matter because it is your day to day.
It's day to day.
And it impacts everything about how you move through, life.
Yeah. We break down the happily ever after. You know how all the movies stop at happily ever after? Yeah. They never continue on to what is life like? What does that mean? And a lot of people don't know that, some people find it boring, because all the excitement is gone. And what does that look like? And that's another thing that we address, in the workbook.
Yeah. It sounds like a super valuable resource, especially for those couples who may not know where to start or feeling overwhelmed by therapy or just the process in general.
Yeah. And they can do it on their own. So it is designed to be self-help, or your therapist can go through it with you. So each couple gets a workbook each. So it comes in a pack of 2. And there are some exercises that you have to complete and then swap books. To read each other's answers, to grade each other's answers. Like for the finance chapter, I have a financial quiz. And so basically whoever does the best should be the leader in the finances, takes out the gender, takes out who makes how much, right? It really focuses on skill. So it's things like that. So it's interactive as well. It's not just read and talk. It's read, write, and then flop sometimes. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, from your experience, how can premarital counseling help reduce the likelihood, or if there is, the intensity of conflict if a couple ever does face separation or divorce?
So because we address everything, everyone should have, it's a preparation to knowing where everyone's starting point is. Like, what is your baseline? How do you feel? Like, some couples do want to do a prenuptial agreement. And we talk about that in the book. Like, do you want one? I've had couples that haven't even said that yet to their significant other, and they're engaged. And so when we get to that point, they're like, oh, well, yeah, I do. And then we have to talk about it,
Right. Yep.
Something that they have never talked about. So, I mean, we can help you with we can help you during if something comes up and you can't work it out on your own or are struggling just to help you out on your own. And we can also do with discernment counseling, right? Where you're at the end and you're like, I really do want to divorce, and what would that look like? Can we get on the same page and not be angry at each other?
Absolutely. Yeah. I often refer people to discernment counseling that are at the very beginning stages. So
yeah, it's better to do it in the beginning than after all the hurt has happened. And then,
Absolutely. Do you find that those folks who have gone through your premarital counseling or who have worked with the workbook, and maybe you don't know, but have you had scenarios where they have ended up in a separation or divorce later down the road?
I have not yet. I have had them come back during marriage to kind of work out some kinks that came up that they, just did not know how to deal with it, but not that they went through it and then got divorced and came back. No, I have not.
I'm curious as to how the premarital counseling will, if at all, impact either them deciding to stay together because they've done so much of that work ahead of time, or if it reduces the conflict that they have if they do go through a separation or divorce.
And, it's my hope that it will reduce it. I feel like nothing is going to eliminate conflict or anger or hurt, but I do hope that it reduces it because you kind of have in black and white what you already thought. Right. So coming to therapy is like, what changed? Those are the things that we would talk about if they went through the program with us and then came back. It's more of what changed and how can we get it back to where it was a neutral, mutual agreement.
Absolutely. Well, Angel, this has been such an important and refreshing conversation. Thank you for reminding us that healthy marriages don't just happen. They're built intentionally.
They are.
For our listeners, if you're engaged and thinking about marriage or even wanting to strengthen your current relationship, consider premarital counseling as one of the most powerful investments you can make. Angel, how can they find more about your workbook and your services?
So they can go to the website. It's anangelstouch.org. I have the workbook up there. I also have games that you see back here on the wall. I have a date night game that you can take. They're all cards. You can take them to dinner, talk about them. They're fun. I actually have one that's good for a large group. If you're having a dinner party or Christmas party, you can do hot topics. This game is, I would say, hot topics and charades after dark. These are the most popular games that I have. But hot topics is about like double-sided questions and debate. So no one's really right, no one's wrong, but you do have to have them, it has to be a group of mature individuals so that no one gets really angry. I will have to put that warning out there. But you can get the games or the workbook or sign up for therapy at the website. I also have a podcast called I'm Not Gonna Lie to You that tells kind of like the harsh truth of therapy, of therapy and life sometimes. So yes, all of that. So yeah, my website, you can find me on my website.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. And as always, if you need legal guidance or mediation support, be sure to check out our website, which is jacobsonfamilylaw.com. And thank you for listening to Drama Free Divorce Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Drama Free Divorce Podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to follow, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. For more resources or to work with us, visit jacobsonfamilylaw.com. Until next time, stay grounded, stay informed, and stay drama-free.